now when we opened our Jersey City third location and then LA and Larchmont Village fourth location this year, I couldn't begin to tell you how much easier it was opening those because we made every mistake you could make opening our second location.
Hey, everybody. Thank you for joining us and welcome to the Founders in LA podcast. I'm your host, Ethan Cole, and this is an opportunity to shine the spotlight through a product lens on some of the exceptional founders we have as part of the LA community in an unedited, one-take organic conversation. With us today in the studio is Dan Londano. Thanks so much for coming to the studio, Dan.
Thanks so much, Ethan. Appreciate having me.
I'm excited to talk to you. It's exciting things happening in Alfalfa. But first, a word from our sponsors. Founders in LA is brought to you by United Club. United Club is a co-working space that sets itself apart. With locations in El Segundo, Manhattan Beach, and Hermosa, United is where creativity flourishes. Unlike traditional offices, they provide an inspiring environment where ideas can thrive and businesses can grow. With United, there's no hidden fees, flexible terms, options for dedicated offices, and unlimited access to conference rooms, a photo studio, this podcast studio, plus standard and 3D printers and 24/7 access at any other locations. They're local champions who support neighborhood businesses, open their events spaces to nonprofits, and to celebrate art, music, and culture. Join United Club and experience co-working like never before. Learn more at www.united.club. We're also brought to you by the Product Managers Association Los Angeles, available at pma.la. They are the largest professional organization for product and designers in LA, with more than 4,000 members from over 500 companies. They host monthly meetups, organize a product leader council, and have a mentorship program where they connect working product managers with students from underrepresented groups to build a better and more diverse next gen. To learn more about PMA, go to pma.la. Our guest today is Dan Londano. He's the co-founder and co-CEO of Alfalfa. Hey, Dan, can you give us the 30-second description of Alfalfa?
Absolutely. Thank you, Ethan. So Alfalfa is a salad and donut place. Most people think we're crazy when I say that, but we are a fast casual that focuses on premium salads and gluten-free donuts. And we operate 4 locations bicoastally, 2 in New Jersey and 2 in LA. And really what we're all about is balance, as you can tell from the whole salad and donut thing. And so we really built a brand and an experience that helps people live more balanced, healthy lives. We certainly play in the better for you kind of restaurant space, but we really focus on the experience of our customers. And there's more I can talk to about that. But that's what we're all about.
That's amazing. So salad and donuts, yeah, not two foods that you would think would go together, especially at a one-stop shop where you basically have a menu of donuts and a menu of salads. Uh, I mean, how did you come to that? It's an interesting mix.
Yeah, I appreciate that. So really, we got our start at a little farmer's market back in 2018. So my 2 buddies from high school and I really always wanted to start a company together. And so they lived in Hoboken, New Jersey at the time. And we were really healthy people at heart. And so we were looking for ways to get a salad in Hoboken. If you don't know Hoboken, it's a place that has more pizza shops and bars than you can imagine. And really, we would have to go to a bar across the street to get a salad. And we did have a unique insight into the healthy and organic produce space. My co-founder, Dan Sopsey, his family was in the produce space for 30 years. They ran a tiny little high-end produce store in Hoboken called Sopsey's Produce since 1991. They actually retired a few years back, but it was a mini Whole Foods before Whole Foods. And so he grew up around really healthy eating. His mom is from Iran, so just a lot of really healthy Persian influence in kind of his diet. And so we wanted to, back in 2018, bring this healthy eating to our community. And so we started a little 10-foot by 10-foot tent at a farmer's market to test out our ideas for improving on salad. And so early days, we kind of got together on a whiteboard and came up with all the things that we liked about salads and didn't like about salads. And we tried to come up with what we thought were the perfect salads. And at the time, I was actually working a full-time job as a management consultant, and my 2 co-founders actually left their day jobs to pursue this. And we every Saturday for a whole year would get together and along with Dan's little brother Ben, and we would actually cut all the vegetables ourselves. Wake up at like 5 a.m. every single Saturday and set up this tent and make our salads. And we did that for an entire year. And at the end of that, we really discovered from all those customer interactions what would ultimately become our menu that we still have today. And then at the end of the whole experience, we ultimately added donuts to the menu once we opened our brick and mortar, which I can talk about.
Wow. And so, I mean, talk about getting the customer feedback. So you guys were really cutting up the vegetables and serving your actual customers at the very beginning of all this.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we didn't sign a lease and, buy a bunch of equipment. We just kind of went off and did it and just found some commercial kitchen space and through Dan's connections to farmers, found some just really high quality produce to make the salads and then just did it ourselves. Didn't have any employees for a whole year.
So it's like bootstrapping to the extreme. So like really minimal capitalization. You're really just kind of keeping you guys simple, whiteboarding, but whiteboarding among the few of you, and then also whiteboarding in real time. So just a lot of folks, a lot of our listeners, a lot of folks we've talked to are more software folks, but in the software style, it's like super agile, right? So like you guys are whiteboarding, creating the ideas for these salads, but then you're executing immediately. Like there wasn't like, oh, we'll have this salad in like 3 years from now, like three years or 3 months. You're kind of building towards getting that salad and then handing it out to folks on the street. You're literally whiteboarding it, and then Saturday comes around like, hey guys, we gotta chop the carrots again. What are we putting in this thing?
Yeah, absolutely, and we would, it actually allowed us to test new ideas quickly, so, I remember one week we're like, "Oh, like, maybe fruit cups could be something that we also do," and so we just, like, made a bunch of fruit cups, and they didn't sell, and so we talked to customers to understand kind of what they liked about our brand, and also from those conversations, we realized that really half of the experience of Alfalfa was the food that they were eating and the really inventive, creations that we had, but really, half of it was that experience of talking to us and the hospitality that we provided from day one. And from that experience, we actually, when we had an opportunity, which was really almost miraculous, to open our first brick and mortar location at the site of an old 30s diner, we made a very intentional decision to think deeply about that customer experience when they first walk in and made some very big operational decisions and even team hiring and culture decisions to optimize for that experience. And so, for instance, when you walk into an Alfalfa, there's no salad line in front of you. And that's actually very purposeful, even though we're a salad place. 80% of our sales are salads. It's because we wanted that customer to feel a certain way and then be able to experience our product in a certain way in a certain space. That was really important to us. And that insight only came from being the ones that were talking to those customers for a whole year to understand what it was that they liked about Alfalfa.
Tell me about this transfer from farmers market stall to brick and mortar, because it does feel like it's a different, potentially different clientele, but certainly a far different experience from hey, I'm in 1 second at a stall buying cheese or maple syrup, and then now I'm at the salad stall versus, hey, I'm going to this restaurant. I'm going to Alfalfa to eat my salad meal. What was the key decision point? I guess what was the inflection point for you guys to decide to move away from the stall and open up a brick and mortar?
Yeah, so close to the end of the season, we knew that we had a lot of customers that wanted us year round, wanted us 7 days a week. So we were actually actively looking for real estate opportunities, and weren't finding something that kind of fit our criteria, and wasn't overly big, overly expensive. And we frankly got lucky. My co-founder's mother was talking to a restaurateur in the farmers market who also had a stand for a 30s diner called Schnackenberg's that was in Hoboken since the 30s. And she was just talking about our need for real estate. And it turned out that he had been watching us, the restaurateur and his wife, they'd been watching us for the whole year to see how hardworking we were, how tightly connected to the community we were. And they wanted to give us an opportunity to do a pop up in their 30s diner. So for about 3 months, they closed at 5 o'clock and then we would open at 6, and we ran a pop-up in their space because little did we know they actually wanted to retire, and they were really testing our resolve and to see how we were going to do the challenge. And ultimately they said, hey, we're retiring, we're going to close this diner after 80 years, and we want it to become an Alfalfa. And so I think it was a combination of hard work but also luck, the fact that we were in that position and we'd kind of shown somebody what we were made of. And then ultimately we had a very low cost build out, turning that diner into a restaurant, doing it ourselves, doing it with our first employee. And ultimately, we didn't raise any capital. We were able to, I think that restaurant now employs over 40 people, and it didn't need any funding to open. We just kind of did it ourselves. And like I said, yeah, just luck and hard work.
Wow, that's fantastic. And the power of moms, I guess. I don't give a shout out to mom every day. My mom and moms everywhere. Um, that's fantastic. So how did you find yourself in a place where you're going to expand your line? So, right. So at this point, killing it in the salad scene. A couple friends come together and you're chopping it up yourselves. You're running a successful stall in a market, in a farmer's market. You find yourself in a perfect situation for brick and mortar with a pop up place, which again, thinking through like the typical startup challenges, like you didn't have to put the capital into it. You got to kind of test the waters as a pop up after someone else closed, so you didn't have to like go all in too early. You got to test it out. Um, what point did the donuts come into the picture? What time just like, okay, yeah, we got salad handled. Like, let's try something drastically basically the opposite of what we've been doing to this point.
It, it's a great question. So I think there are two elements at play here. I think one was when we took over the space, it was a diner. There were a lot of great employees that were working there that we, unfortunately, some of them, we couldn't give them a job, but there was this amazing baker, super talented baker that used to make donuts and cakes and all sorts of things. And we were like, oh, we love Yogi is his name. We love him. We don't want to part ways. And then the second thing that happened is we really had an introspective moment, and we thought, okay, we as founders, we're healthy, we like to eat salads, but we indulge on the weekends. We'll go have a burger. Like we want to stay balanced. And we had this big aha moment that even though there was this huge opportunity to build a salad brand, and I think there's some great companies out there that are kind of building out the salad space, but we think it's enormous. We think it's just the beginning. We wanted to have a unique approach to it and attack it more from a balance point of view. And so we thought, well, what better way to have a balanced menu than to do something completely opposite in that way, but then have it be the beginning of a conversation where, our salads are now, they weren't before, but now they're gluten free. They're a little bit smaller, a little more guilt free. And it really is a fun way to help our community understand that Alfalfa is here not only to help you physically, but also mentally and in terms of your whole health, lead a better, more balanced life. And so that was that initial kind of moment where we added the donuts because we had the equipment, but it also spoke to us as founders as something that was more genuine to us because we were not the type to eat 30 days a month a salad for lunch every single day. And that's something we wanted to scale is that balanced aspect of what we're all about.
Oh man, I have to ask, what's the carryover in terms of customers who will order a salad and also get donuts? Is it higher than you'd expect? Like, oh yeah, it's actually a typical thing.
Absolutely, and I think what's also unique is the trip driver. Sometimes it's a kid that wants an alfalfa donut, and mom's like, "That's a great idea. Let's I'll get my salad and we'll be happy." And so I think there's this ability to speak to a lot of different families or groups of people with our menu, where we also have now breakfast burritos and bone broth that we make from scratch. It really helps to create this balanced feeling, especially in a bigger group where you don't get the veto vote. Someone who doesn't like salads.
That's amazing. And you mentioned earlier that you're on two coasts, Hoboken, so in Jersey, and then also in LA in Santa Monica. Um, just just curious from like kind of a distribution perspective, it's got to be some challenges. It's not like we're in four locations, two in Jersey and two in New York or Philly or something pretty close to you. That's how are you like what was the driver to have them open up so far from each other? So I guess you take advantage of the learnings from the East Coast and the West Coast, but you certainly have some logistical challenges that you have to almost start brand new, right?
Yeah, it was probably a bad idea. It's worked out great, and really just extremely beneficial to our path now. But yeah, so Alfalfa was always extremely LA inspired and Southern California inspired. We all had different ties to LA. So Dan Sopsey, co-founder, he actually grew up coming to LA. His grandfather lived in Venice his whole life. And then Andrew, our other co-founder, lived in LA for 5 years after college, and he lived in all different parts of LA, actually down in Hermosa as well, which we're very close to right now. And before moving back to the East Coast, and then I was actually moving to LA in 2020. My wife had an opportunity during COVID, and so we came out May of 2020. So I was already going to be living here actually before Santa Monica was even a thing. And so for all those reasons, my co-founder Dan was actually messing around on LoopNet one day and discovered this amazing location opportunity in Santa Monica. And it was, it was middle COVID. It was like 90% off, kind of key money deal. And he kind of messaged us as a joke, like, guys, how funny would it be to open our second location 3,000 miles away? And we laughed about it. Next thing you know, he actually had reached out to the broker, didn't tell us, and 3 months later, we were signing a lease, and this is like July of 2020. So it was, obviously a great deal for us. No one was signing a lease around then, but we, just had a lot of conviction that Alfalfa had the potential to just be a really large player in the space, and we knew that if we pushed ourselves to grow the hard way, it was going to make growing later on much easier. And so it was really hard. We started, like you said, our brand from complete scratch out in Santa Monica, carrying a lot of our recipes over, but picking new local purveyors and suppliers and building up a supply chain from scratch, which my co-founder Dan Sopsey is very skilled at. But I think because our menu and our aesthetic and our brand was already very Southern California inspired, it was really an immediate hit. And we really, from that moment, where we opened, and we opened in 2021 in Santa Monica, things went well for us, and we ended up getting to do Coachella actually this past April, which was really nice. And a lot of great things have come out of being on the West Coast for the brand. And now when we opened our Jersey City third location, and then LA and Larchmont Village fourth location this year, I couldn't begin to tell you how much easier it was opening those, because we'd made every mistake you could make opening our second location.
That's fantastic, and it almost sets you up for success if you want to move to like Seattle or Austin or some other new location. You'd be like, yeah, we could do it because we've been through worse. Like we've done this once, and sometimes you can get lucky the first time, but it's hard to get lucky twice. And from the second one, I'm sure you got some great learnings.
Absolutely, yeah. From anywhere from the way we hire to the way that we engineer a product in our menu to the way we leverage technology within the business. There's just tons of that going on in the background. Yeah, to your point, we have a lot more comfort now opening new locations.
One question that typically we ask here on this podcast is, how did you get your first customers? Seems like in Jersey, it almost kind of happened naturally because you set up within a marketplace that existed, and people are in a farmers market are always looking to try new things, or there's free samples. So that seems like it's kind of an easier start. But love to hear more about the Santa Monica location. So you have, some branding and some super fans, I'm sure, over on the East Coast. But then starting in Santa Monica, how did you get those first customers in the door?
One at a time. It really, to your point, I mean, we obviously had told our Hoboken customers that we were opening, and we were hoping that people would tell their friends, and that did happen to an extent. Every single day, we'd have someone saying, "Hey, like my friend said, I have to come check you out," and things like that. But I think what really has now led to our success was those early days, like us as founders, just being there in person, talking to the community, talking to these local customers, and getting to know them really deeply, and getting to understand what they were all about, what they were looking for. And to this day, we have amazing friendships with a lot of folks in the Ocean Park community in Santa Monica that we just kind of made being there, and having them taste our food, and experience Alfalfa every single day. And then ultimately, we actually hired for that hospitality. That was a really key piece that was important to our success. So we have some of the most hospitable people you can imagine across Alfalfa, but specifically in Santa Monica, who have these very tight relationships with our community. And we've actually over time placed a very big emphasis on having very low turnover. As a company, we're actually like a fraction of the industry turnover because of just many ways that we go about doing that. And that has actually led to our success in these communities where we truly understand them at a deep level.
Wow, that's fantastic. So part of the key that you've recognized along the way was part of this experience, and you're carrying that through not just from, again, for fellas in a market, in a farmer's market stall, but to 4 locations and hiring for each of those locations.
Exactly. Yeah, and embedding that deep into our DNA, that connection to the customer, that sometimes when you're stepping back and coming up with new systems and processes, and kind of ways of systematizing for scale, it's actually easy to forget that, like, you have to meet Jane in your neighborhood, or Joe, and get to know them, and that we place tremendous emphasis on that in the way that we interact when we go to every location, and then down to the newest team member. They understand how critical it is that every single person that walks into Alfalfa has to feel better when they walk out, and that's your job.
That's phenomenal. And just one more piece before we move on to the most LA thing. I can't help but think back to the to what you said. What was the line? It's the the trip grabber or the trip driver?
Trip driver, yeah.
Trip driver, and so this idea that the trip driver is a child wanting to go to donuts and mom can get a salad when the kid's getting donuts, like, was that intentional, or was one of those things that came up, like, after the fact, like, "Oh, this is" like, "Oh, this actually worked out really well, like, this is great."
Yeah, no, honestly, kind of serendipitous. But I will say it's the way that a lot of parents get their kids to eat veggies is to sure, let's go to Alfalfa. You can get a Nutella bite, but you also have to eat a salad, or yeah, let's build your own salad and let's teach you about all these really healthy ingredients. And that happens a lot at Alfalfa.
Oh, that's fantastic. I got a one-year-old and a four-year-old, so we may have to stop by and check it out.
Please do.
All right, and grounding this in LA, I know you've been here for a couple of years now, and you opened up location number 2. What's the most LA thing that's happened to you? It could be tech related, it doesn't have to be.
Uh, Probably has to do with Erewhon. So when we first moved here, we were honestly a little bit just entertained by Erewhon. We would go, have a chuckle at some price points and but also just discover some products that were really cool. Um, but yeah, we weren't like big customers, and I think probably the most LA thing is that we became kind of like diehard fans now. And so we got the membership, and now it's like a habit, almost daily where we go there and just really appreciate the food and the quality of everything. And so I think just getting won over by everyone is probably the most LA thing that's happened to us.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, thanks again so much for being here. Thanks for telling us about Alfalfa. Um, the locations, you want to tell us again where the locations are?
Thank you. Yeah. Visit us in Hoboken, Jersey City, or in LA. We're in Santa Monica and Larchmont. And follow us as we continue scaling, hopefully near you.
Uh, I mean, this is fantastic idea. I love, salad and donuts. I'm not going to forget that one. We've been speaking with Dan Londano, co-founder and co-CEO of Alfalfa. Thank you so much for being here, Dan. I'd like to thank our sponsors, PMALA and Unita. Thank you all for listening to us. And if you like what you hear, please smash that subscribe button. Thanks again for joining us, and we'll catch you next time on Founders in LA.